being a professional artist. Now that's the goal. What does that mean? That basically means making a living from or money from artistic endeavours, artistic products, art in general, opposed to the hobbyist, the amateur artist who's just doing it for fun or is on their way to making it professional. It's a hard road at the best of times, and I feel like over the last few years it's been harder than perhaps it ever has, but not for everyone. Some people have done okay out of the art thing, and those people will go online and they'll put videos out on YouTube, for example, talking about how much money they're making, how well they're doing. Sometimes the opposite's true as well. And I was watching a video about someone discuss their earnings, how much money they're making, particularly from shows and things like that. And then there was a follow-up video on a different art channel where they were discussing the whole process of what they were doing, this person was doing to make money, and was it a legitimate way to make money? Was it worth it? Were they making good money? Could they make more money? Things like that. It was all that kind of thing, art talk basically. And then I went through the comments, and I always find it quite interesting reading the comments after a video just to see what the general feel, you know, in the sort of social domain is for the video that's being put out. And based on the comments in this particular sort of follow-up video that I read, where artists and people aspiring to that kind of thing. I mean, it was an art channel, so I'm assuming most of the comments were from other artists. It was basically a case of 35 to 40% of those commenting were quite hopeful that they too could do quite well financially and that there was opportunities, are quite positive about their potential career or their current career as an artist. And then 60 to 65% of people were quite unhopeful, quite negative, you know, saying that it's difficult, it's hard, if not impossible these days. You know, I'd rather just have a regular 9 to 5 and do art on the side because it's just too difficult to make it work. Things like, oh, you know, it's tough because I want to be an artist. I don't want to be a business person. I don't want to know how to sell a market, which is half the battle. There was, you know, like I said, there was still sort of 35 to 40% of positive comments, but then even then, 30 to 40% of those positive comments, which were, you know, talking about people they knew and, you know, a friend's experience. I wasn't even talking about their own experience, but it's like, oh, I know a guy who does really well at a thing. You know, the whole, well, I can find an example of someone who's done really well in X. I think those kind of comments should somewhat be discounted because we all know of someone who's done really well at a thing. You know, you only have to watch the Olympic Games to find athletes that are doing really well at their chosen sport. But it doesn't potentially take into account all the hundreds of thousands of other athletes that would like to be doing that thing to even half the level that they were doing, or to a professional level at least. So then I started wondering about this idea of positivity and negativity. Obviously, it seems within the art community, or at least on this particular video thread that I was watching, that people aren't that hopeful in general. The majority aren't very positive about the artistic journey, about the potential of them turning their love of art and design into a career. And I think a lot of people are willing to take sacrifice. A lot of people are willing to be like, look, I'll be happy not to have, you know, the big house, the fast car, the expensive clothes or whatever, as long as I get to have a career doing the kind of things I enjoy, or a job or something like that. But even then, it doesn't seem like most people are doing that, or most people are getting there. And the trouble with the videos that I'm putting out is most of them are similarly quite negative, I think. I tend to sort of talk about, here's the thing I've tried, it hasn't worked. Here's another thing I've tried, it hasn't worked. Oh, let me tell you about this thing that I've tried that hasn't worked. And it was suggested to me by someone I know personally that I shouldn't be doing videos like that. People need inspiration, you know. Let's try and be the, you know, the sort of the person out there who's sort of putting that positive spin and trying to get these sort of 65% of unhopefuls into that sort of hopeful category. Because that's what people want to hear. That's people don't want to hear about you moaning. People don't want to hear about your negative experiences because it makes people depressed. And I get it. I completely get it. Like, there's only so much bad news people could take. Although you wouldn't believe it when you just look at the news. You know, if you follow the, you know, current affairs and things, like, you would think that the world is actually falling apart. And in some ways it is, but people still like the sort of car crash TV and the negative news stories on their news feeds. Otherwise, you know, people wouldn't subscribe to that kind of stuff. But it is difficult, I think, when you're trying to be a professional and you're trying to put forward a persona of success and positivity, and you need to have that in order to make this whole venture work. 'Cause it's not easy. It's not like starting a business where you're selling blenders or headphones or running shoes, or toothpaste, just things that most people would probably, just your average, everyday, mainstream person think, oh, I would like that. With art, it's especially the top, like whether your niche is, most people aren't going to like that basically. And then even with in your niche, people that even do like it aren't necessarily going to buy it. Well, there's lots of things I like, but I wouldn't necessarily buy. So maybe I just don't have the money, I don't have the wall space, or yeah, anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. My point is that it made me consider, oh, maybe I should be more positive. So I'm thinking from my own perspective as someone who's trying to communicate his journey to becoming a full-time artist, how much of that should be honest? How much of that should be negative if that happens to be the state of affairs? Like if I try 20 things in order to sort of better myself and 19 of 20 of those things don't work, or maybe 20 out of 20 of those things don't work, should I report back to the internet and let people know? I mean, that to me seems like a worthwhile thing. If I, like in a previous video, talk about a website like Bark and how you could sign up to one of these crowdsourcing types of sites to try and get work, if I can basically say, well, I tried that thing and I didn't think it was very good for these reasons, personally, I feel like that has value. But I think the general consensus would be, don't talk about the things that you failed at, just concentrate on the things that could work. I'm not convinced yet that that's how you should be. I could put together a top 5 list of ways you could potentially make money that are in the sort of mainstream, typical ways of making money with artwork. And I could say, oh, you could try going to Etsy. You could try selling on Amazon. You could try selling through Bark. You could try going on Fiverr or Upwork, or one of these crowd sourcing websites. You could try listing a project on Kickstarter or Indiegogo or whatever it is. Does that work? Is that actually going to work for most people? Are most people going to try these things, not get anywhere, and then think, oh, I've just wasted like 6 months of my time trying to do something that just hasn't worked? I'm not saying these things can't work for everyone, but I think it's worth being aware that there's more to it than just setting up an Etsy page and sticking half a dozen products on and then the money starts come rolling in. I kind of thought from the beginning it's worth adding a balanced perspective of someone who's got sort of gone out, tried a thing, maybe invested a bit more time than the typical sort of newbie in a venture like Etsy, and sort of comes back and says it hasn't worked. And then even if I can just say, well, look, it hasn't worked for me, this is what I did, hopefully that can help someone in thinking, okay, well, maybe I won't waste my time in trying that thing, or I know it didn't work for you, but I can see why it didn't work for you. It didn't work for you because you had a crap product, or your artwork was crap, or you weren't also coupling it with, some sort of marketing campaign, which I know to do from some other video I've seen. And so I think it's worth just being honest and saying what your own experiences of things are, and then people can learn from that and get a more realistic, rounded sense of what's going on. It's like with YouTube videos. Some people might think, oh, I watch a lot of YouTube videos, I might start putting YouTube videos out because people are making money with YouTube. Just the reality of it is 90% of people, probably more than that, don't make any money from YouTube that put YouTube videos up. So it's only a small percentage of people that are making any kind of money. And then even then, most people will say, I'm not making enough money, depending on your newsfeed or the videos that you watch. Because this is the thing, like YouTube kind of allows the sort of bigger content creators, the better stuff maybe, to sort of rise to the top. So you're typically presented mostly with big channels, thousands of subscribers, typically getting thousands, tens of thousands of views on videos. And you're sort of led to believe that, oh, this is a valid thing. It's quite easy to get tens of thousands of subscribers and views on each video that you put out. But they don't make up most videos. Most videos are little obscure ones like mine that only have a couple of hundred subscribers, of which 10% of those probably even checking to watch the videos. And I don't know, I just feel like it's worth being honest, but I'm also trying to be mindful of being hopeful or inspiring, because I think people are more starved for that kind of inspiring content, but it's hard to do it without bullshitting people. Because when I see it with other content creators, or just, it's like, oh, you can do it, I believe anyone can draw. It's like blah, 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 blah. I'm like, it's good, like, as an inspiring message, you can do it, you can go out there and you can win. But, oh, it's bullshit, or it's naivety. Like, anyone who says, oh, anyone can draw, I don't think that's true. I mean, anyone can draw a stick figure. Anyone could be taught to create a basic image. But when people sort of give the advice, oh, anyone can do it, I think what they're saying is anyone could draw well, like draw a good image or paint a good picture with enough practice. I think that's the message that people are trying to say, rather than just anyone could draw a good stick figure, or, you know, or anyone could draw a good looking cube or a good looking sphere or something. So yeah, I mean, lots of people can do that, but that's not gonna, you're not gonna have a career doing that. You're not gonna garner followers and subscriptions and things doing that. The truth is, some people are going to practice and practice for thousands of hours, and they're going to get better, they're going to improve, but they're never going to be pro, say. I mean, there's so many people as well that I know that they tried it. They you know, they went to art college, they drew a lot at school, and they loved it. They enjoyed it, and they were kind of okay at it. But I think they soon realised this isn't for me, and ended up just becoming photographers, or, you know, Photoshop guys that are okay when they're sort of manipulating an existing digital file or an existing environment or something in the world that they can take a photo of and do something with. But I think they themselves realise, oh, I can't create things from scratch, it's too hard. That's because it is. And some people have aptitudes for it and some people don't. In the same way, I wouldn't like to advise, well, anyone could be a basketball player. Some people just can't do it. Physically, they cannot do it. Some people just have really poor coordination and they can't even bounce the ball, let alone bounce it, run with it, throw it in a hoop. It's just how it is. And I like the fact that there are people out there who would say that, because that's reality. But people seemingly don't want reality, and people are advising me not to be honest. People would advise me, look, don't talk about the fact that most people are unhopeful about their art prospects as having a career in art, because that's not the message you want to give out. That's not going to help you, and maybe it won't. Maybe it just means, as a content creator, as someone who puts videos out on YouTube, I'll just be stuck at 200 subscribers for the rest of my life, talking to a couple of people who care to listen to some honest opinions about things. Meanwhile, the sort of you can do it, anyone could become a professional type videos will go out, get their millions of views. But I don't know, for me, I just want to keep it real, be honest, and say what's on my mind. And sometimes I want to just say, look, I've tried 20 things, none of it's worked, and I'm feeling pissed off about that. I hope that some people would find that useful and allow me to be the counterpoint to the many, you can do it type of videos. But having said that, I'm not always cynical, negative, and unhopeful every day of my life. So I wouldn't say no to passing on those little knowledge nuggets or those little inspirational things that have helped and could help other people in a sort of more positive, hopeful light. But I guess it's just getting a balance, really. So anyway, this was just a little talk about positivity. Should you be positive or negative in the content that you put out into the world, whether it's social media posts or your persona in general, or should you try and be more honest, even if being honest kind of means you're a bit cynical, a bit negative, a bit skeptical about how things are going to pan out? What should you do? You tell me. Anyway, I'll see you next time.